Two more games left in 2024 for the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're going to preview those and talk about some of the best bolts under 30 on today's episode of Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Lightning. Josh Sperber here, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time because if you download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get $20 off of your first purchase. And let's get started by looking towards the future. The Tampa Bay Lightning are one of the younger teams in the NHL, primarily made up of homegrown players, but obviously at a kind of transition point in the season, about the halfway point. You start thinking about the future. Yesterday, we were talking about some potential crunch call-ups that could feature for the Lightning this season and eventually make an impact for Tampa Bay, injuries or not. But right now, we'll look at the Lightning roster and talk about the future bolts. Only 5 forwards for the Lightning are over 30 years old, and all but 2 Lightning players on defense, Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough, are under 30, with both goalies on their active roster under 30 as well. So let's look at some of these top bolts under 30 years old. Jake Guentzel did just turn 30 in October before the season got started, which puts him really off of this list. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can look towards the future with these guys. With the youth players, or the younger players, I should say, on this Lightning roster. I think when you look at potential, it's easy, I think, to see who can be the best player in the future. And for me, that's one of the 2 players that they acquired from the Utah Hockey Club in the offseason. The Mikhail Sergachev trade brought the Lightning maybe their best offseason move, by replacing Sergachev on the first line with the younger J.J. Moser, who is 25 years old at this point, and Connor Geekie, who I think when you look at potential, those are probably the best Lightning players on the current roster. I mean, Geekie might not have gaudy numbers, and Moser, even before he was taken out for a long point of the season, did have some pretty solid numbers in the 27 games that he's played. For a defenseman, Moser, 2 goals and 8 assists. And even right now, only Victor Hedman and Nick Perbix have more points than Moser. Perbix has played the same number of games. Hedman has played 3 more. Obviously, the assist numbers for Hedman significantly higher, as he is currently 3rd on the Lightning with 24 assists and one of the top defensemen in assist providing in the entire NHL. Nick Perbix only recently equaled the amount of points of J.J. Moser. He got that goal a couple weeks ago at home against St. Louis. So I think, still, I think, need to see some more of Moser, mainly just because he's been out the past couple of games. So you just want to see him back in the contest. But he's someone that is a lot more first line ready than I initially expected. I'm looking at that trade, seeing Moser, a guy who had played the last couple seasons in the NHL, and been solid, just, on a lower line for Arizona. He'd been in the league since 2021, so he certainly had some NHL experience, but he still had a combined plus-minus of -27 in his first 200 or so games in the NHL. So the development is where Arizona and Utah got J.J. Moser. He was quick to the NHL too, 60th overall pick in 2021, and played half of that 2021 and 2022 season with the Arizona Coyotes. So he really just went right up into the NHL. And I think that's one thing that I underestimated about him, that he was already pretty NHL ready. And a new player on that first line is never an easy thing to do. I feel like in hockey, you usually see some of the newer guys of Moser's age and younger start on the lower lines, not having as much minutes, really just working their way up to the top. But Moser was thrown right into the fire, and it's something that he's gotten used to over his NHL career. He pretty much went right from the draft with not a lot of time in the minor leagues in hockey. Really just seemed to go right from the draft to the NHL. And then when he came to the Lightning, he went right to the Bolts' first line. He's a guy with a lot of international experience as well. So for a guy who's 24 years old, Moser has already played a lot of games. There aren't too many 24-year-olds who have played 232 NHL games and are 18 points away from 100 in their career. And Moser is certainly an exception, but just 18 games in the AHL before the Coyotes called him up after captaining EHC Biel in Switzerland, which is part of the top professional league in the country. So I think Moser might honestly be the best Lightning player under 30 right now. It's certainly the case on defense, I think. Offensively, I think the title of the best right now has to go to Braden Point. I don't think there's really much of a debate to be had. Hagel honestly might have the best future potential, though, because he really seems to just be hitting his stride right now. And I don't want to take away from Hagel's skill, but he has a combined 56 goals and just under 100 assists in his previous 60 goals and about 100 assists in his previous 3 seasons with the Lightning after joining from the Blackhawks in 2021. And this year, he is set to destroy all of those personal bests. He already, 32 games into the season, Hagel has 14 goals less than his career high of 30. His career high of assists, 49, set last season. He currently has 23, and he had a high of plus 23 in his first full season with the Lightning. Currently at plus 15. I feel like that is something that's a bit more difficult to project and to predict. But I mean, with his efficiency on defense and, he's just playing the game a lot more. Every single year with the Lightning, Hagel has increased his time on the ice and improved in most statistical categories. The only drop off was by 4 goals from 2023 to 2024. But in points, he increased that output by 11 in 2 seasons and just one more game played. Not a guy who spends a whole lot of time in the penalty box, a great two-way forward, and someone who I think down the line could end up as a key face of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, it's certainly, a great left wing 1-2 punch with Gensel and him on that first and second line at the left wing spot. And he works just so incredibly well with Anthony Cirelli, who is also a guy who he and Hagel, I could easily see them as a first line pairing down the road. But of course, Braden Point, Jay Gensel potentially in the way of that. I think right now, the best Lightning player under 30 has to be Braden Point. He's not just one of the best players on the Tampa Bay Lightning, but one of the best players in the entire NHL. And it really seems like he's having that star turn of a season. I can't say a breakout season because, people knew who Braden Point was. He was a 50-plus point scorer in all but 2 of his previous 8 years in the NHL. And this year, he is on pace to smash all of his personal bests and maybe even get the Rocket Richard Trophy. That is a definite possibility for the former third-round pick and 28-year-old Braden Point. But obviously, you look to the future and you look at potential and you see some of the younger guys potentially being able to surpass them all. Emil Lilleberg is someone who I like. I really like his physicality and how he can really set the tone of games with some of his hits, and that's something that he takes a whole lot of pride in as well. And he's exhibited a lot of his toughness as well. A solid defender. Definitely some work to do, but definitely someone that I could see moving up the Lightning ranks. I mean, down the road, maybe 5 years from now, when McDonough and Hedman are sadly retired, we could see a J.J. Moser and Emil Lilleberg first line for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think that's a definite possibility. And offensively, I did purposefully save this to the end because I feel like I've talked so much about the potential that Connor Geekie has, but I truly believe the Lightning have a future star on their hands with Geekie. And something that we've talked about all throughout this year is just how well that Utah trade, giving away Sergachev for two relatively untested, young, talented players, could end up as just a massive steal and part of a secretly really solid offseason for the Tampa Bay Lightning, even though they lost their captain in free agency. So I think potential-wise, Geekie and Moser are the two guys defensively who can make the most noise. Right now, the best Lightning player under 30 would have to go to Braden Point. But the future is certainly bright for the Tampa Bay Lightning. By the way, both their goalies are under 30. I don't think you need me to tell you who their top option in that is, because Andrei Vasilevsky remains as one of the best goalkeepers in the world. It is a back-to-back this coming weekend for the Tampa Bay Lightning, though, starting with a game against the New York Rangers on Saturday, and then the Habs come to town on Sunday for the Lightning's final game of 2024. We'll start with the Rangers when we go through the next two game previews for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any other of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. And you can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30 million or more during Picksmas and offering you 2 free picks in the month of December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. And if you use the code LOCKEDONNHL, you should probably bet on some Lightning players. Prize Picks, run your game. We are back here on Locked On Lightning for the first of 2 game previews of the weekend. Lightning are at home for the final 2 tilts of 2024. The Montreal Canadiens on Sunday after the New York Rangers on Saturday, ending off quite a homestand to finish the month for the Lightning before a West Coast trip comes to Amalie Arena to begin January next week. So let's talk about the game against the New York Rangers. And as we have mentioned over the course of this week, the Rangers came into this season as one of the Eastern Conference favorites, certainly one of the more popular picks of the teams expected to come out of the Eastern Conference after they finished as one of the top teams in the NHL last year. The way the season has gone for the Rangers, though, is quite far from most expectations. Igor Shesterkin, their star goaltender, got the big contract that he wanted. Jonathan Quick came in to back him up. But already, some of the biggest trade dominoes that may fall at all during this entire trade deadline process may have already fallen. New York's captain Jacob Trouba and Kaapo Kakko were 2 high-profile Ranger players dealt in the month of December due to their struggles over the course of that month. And that will certainly hurt. And it certainly has not been easy for New York over the month of December. Currently at 16, 17, and 1. And shockingly have fallen behind the Flyers. So they're 1 point behind Philadelphia with a game in hand. And are below 500 for the first time in what seems like a long time. 2 straight losses for New York before they head to Amalie Arena. But they had a similar holiday break to Tampa, a doubleheader at home and in New Jersey against the Devils. First, the Hurricanes and the Devils are their last 2 losses, their last win a week ago today. a 3-1 victory on the road against the Dallas Stars. And the Rangers are still quite dangerous on the road, though they're even better on the road than they are at home. Actually, 9-8-0 away from Madison Square Garden, while 7-9-1 in the friendly confines, the world's most famous arena, but just 3 wins in the last 10 games for the New York Rangers. Meanwhile, the Tampa Bay Lightning are the opposite, 7 wins and 3 losses in their last 10 games, including 4 of their last 5 victories, with just 1 of 2 in the home and home against the Panthers, providing for the Lightning's only loss in the past week or two. So if you're looking at momentum and if you're looking at where the teams are right now, on paper, the Lightning certainly have an advantage. The Rangers seem to be in a state of disarray. Their coach might even be on the hot seat, and you never know what more players will be traded. Chris Kreider is one of the many names that has been thrown around as potential trade pieces for the Rangers. But when you look at some of the last 5 games, you look at the players, no one has more than 2 points over the last 5 games for the New York Rangers. And I'm not talking about game by game, individually, no one has put up more than 2 points in those games. No. Vincent Trocheck is the leader in points for the Rangers with just 2 over the last 5 games. That offense for New York has gone stagnant, it seems. They're certainly reeling in the effects of losing their captain. And Capo Caco was a big surprise, though he certainly is not in favor of many Rangers fans. I can tell you that because I'm spending the holidays in my family with New York. And it took me a quick conversation at a bar with the Rangers fans. And we'll just say that I'm not going to repeat what he said about Capo Caco on this podcast because, well, it's not appropriate. Kako certainly not a favorite. Maybe he'll have a resurgence in his next stop. But, I mean, these are 2 guys that the Rangers thought were going to be key pieces that are gone now. The Lightning may have a couple guys down to injury. J.J. Moser still has another minimum of 7 weeks before he comes back. We likely won't see him until after the NHL All-Star break. And there's a couple of just those nagging injuries that the Lightning have had that have kept some key players off the ice lately or hampered some of their play a little bit. Connor Geekie was out after picking up a minor injury in the first game of the back-to-back against Florida at home. I think he was he stayed out of that second game as a precaution. Zemgus Girgensson was another guy on injury loss who did end up on injury watch, who did end up playing in the shutout win against Florida. And of course, the Lightning get Nikita Kucherov back after he left early due to a game misconduct penalty for his hit on Tkachuk. So, like I said yesterday, I really think that Kucherov is going to come out just firing in this game against the Rangers. A player like that, that hit might have been some teammate defense. No reason to get ejected, I think, but it's certainly not one that I imagine he is too happy about getting ejected. He wants to play those full games. Kucherov might be one of the quieter players on the Tampa Bay Lightning, but it's sometimes the quiet ones that can have the fiercest response to any kind of adversity. And taking Kucherov out of that game didn't affect the Lightning winning. They were winning before he left as he scored the opening goal and finished the game with 3 more goals, at least 2 of which were without Nikita Kucherov on the ice. And regardless of the slumping that's going on in New York for the Rangers right now, the Lightning aren't going to take this team lightly. They know that this is a team that could and maybe should be one of the Eastern Conference contenders right now. Trades or not, on paper, they still have a really solid roster. They're a well-coached team, and, they've gone the distance in the regular season frequently over the last couple of years. So this is not a game the Lightning are going to take lightly, and it is a game that I think the Lightning are, they really, you could just see a goal onslaught. I think Kucherov is going to get some goals, some assists. I would honestly prefer he doesn't get a single assist because I really want him to pass Marty St. Louis in front of Marty St. Louis when Marty comes back to Amalie Arena as the head coach of the Canadiens. I think that would just be it would be fitting since St. Louis might be the best Lightning player Kucherov might be the best Lightning player since Martin St. Louis on offense. I mean, he's just that good. So it would be kind of fitting and a nice homage to the Lightning's illustrious history if Kucherov can become the second player to break St. Louis' assist mark with the Bolts this season. And eventually, as we mentioned yesterday, Kucherov will have a lot more records in his sights. But the first thing in his sights will be a win against the Rangers. I'm thinking the Lightning are going to win that one pretty big. I'm going to go 5-2 Bolts in a win against the Rangers. I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game for Tampa. I think they're really going to try and start strong early and take it to the Rangers and get them out of the game as soon as possible. And the Rangers still have enough talent on offense. They might get a goal here and there, but I think the Lightning are really going to pour it on when the Rangers come to town. And the day after the Rangers come to town, a team from the other continent in the NHL featured the Montreal Canadiens, two of the original 6 teams coming to do battle at Amalie Arena. I've got a win for the Lightning in the first one. We'll see what we think about Lightning against Canadiens in what will be their final game in 2024. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Well, that's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize that I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your spending habits and increase your savings. It brings together everything in one place, whether it's subscriptions, spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year financially. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscription, saving members up to $740 per year when using all the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And one final time in 2024, let's preview another Lightning game. You've got the Rangers, who we talked about in that last segment. And after that, it's the Montreal Canadiens, north of the border, coming down south to tangle with the Lightning. And you talk about a tale of two teams. We mentioned with the Rangers, they began one of the season as a serious contender. The Canadiens did not. Not too many expectations for Montreal, signing an elder Patrick Laine. Well, not really elder, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right way to put this. Injured Patrick Laine, who has only played 10 games so far this season for the Canadiens. 8 goals and 1 assist over that last 10. He is clearly on the Canadiens to put some goals across, and in his first game back from injury, Laine responded with a hat trick. Since then, the Canadiens have climbed out of the Atlantic Division cellar, are now up to 6th, and are 9 points back of the Lightning for that 4th place spot in the Atlantic Division. Like the Rangers, they're under 500, 14, 17, and 3. But the Canadiens have done most of their damage at home. They are a sad 4-10-1 on the road away from Montreal, but they have won 6 out of their last 10 games. So Patrick Laine has clearly had the desired effect for the Montreal Canadiens, who are coming off of a remarkable run of goals scored despite their 5-4 loss against Columbus the day before Christmas Eve. The last time the Canadiens have scored fewer than 4 goals in a game was December 14th, the loss to the Winnipeg Jets. 6-1 win against Buffalo, 4-3 win against the Red Wings, a 5-1 win against the Red Wings on the back end of a home-and-home before the 5-4 loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets. So just judging by that and judging by the effect Laine has had on the Canadiens offense, really just providing them, another just killer goal scorer. This one's going to be a barn burner. I think it's going to be it might be a bit closer in terms of the goal deficit between the Lightnings and the Canadians rather than the Lightnings and the Rangers, but I think there's just going to be a lot of goals in this one. You're looking at two offensive heavy teams. And of course, Martin St. Louis against his former team is not something that you can overlook. Anytime you've got a former franchise legend, one of the best players to ever put on that team's jersey coming back into town, whether it's a coach or just even as a fan, it's something to be celebrated. And I think that is, it's not the first time the Lightning have played Martin St. Louis and the Canadians, but I mean, now St. Louis dropped a couple spots down on the assist record, maybe a second spot before that game. So it's not as fresh. It's just, he's still the coach. And it's another, just another kind of cool little piece of knowledge that you can get for these two teams. But Sam Montembeault has also had a really good last few games for Montreal. The thing is, the Canadians are doing the full Florida road trip, as on Saturday, they've got a 1:00 game against Florida before the 5:00 game against the Lightning on Sunday. So both of these teams are playing on the other end of a back-to-back, and you don't know which goalie is going to be used when. I think for the Canadians, I imagine they're going to go Montembeault and get Primo against the Lightning, while the Lightning will have Vasilevsky against the Rangers and Johansson against the Canadians. And Johansson has had a solid season for a backup. Caden Primo, 2-3-1 with a 4.7 goals allowed average and a save percentage well under 900. If Primo is in there instead of Montembeault, that gives the Lightning, I think, an even bigger advantage than they already have. There are few teams that can go toe-to-toe goal-scoring wise with the Tampa Bay Lightning in the NHL. They're one of the best offensive teams in the league. In terms of goals for, there are few teams that even match the Tampa Bay Lightning. Only one team has scored more goals than the Bolts this season, and that's the Winnipeg Jets, who will likely finish 2024 with the best record in the NHL. The other team is the Florida Panthers, who is even on goals for with the Lightning at 126. So you've got a divisional matchup, though, which is going to give both teams some extra juice. And were the Canadians a team at the beginning of the season that most squads could essentially write off? Maybe. This was not a team that had a lot of expectations on it. A couple of solid players in Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Patrick Laine coming back did have the effect that many predicted, and he's been solid for Montreal. But I just don't see the Canadians with the same amount of goal-scoring firepower that the Tampa Bay Lightning have. And defensively, there are a few teams who have allowed as many goals as the Montreal Canadiens. No team in the Atlantic Division has allowed more goals than Montreal so far, with 123 goals allowed over the course of the 2022 season so far. The Pittsburgh Penguins, the Columbus Blue Jackets, Philadelphia Flyers are the only three other Eastern Conference teams who have allowed more than Montreal. And the San Jose is the fourth and final of teams that have allowed more goals than the Canadians have. So if we're doing an offense, we're matching up these offenses where the Lightning, I think, are better than Montreal. And you look at some of the stats, those back that up. They're the only thing that the Canadians have on the Lightning right now is a slightly better penalty kill percentage. Lightning 14th at 80 and the Habs at 82. But the Canadians score fewer than 3 goals per game. And against the Lightning, I just don't think that's going to cut it. You're for the most part, you're going to need 3 to 4 goals to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning with the amount that they're going to put on you in your average game. The Lightning's offense is just that good. So I think this game is going to come down likely to a battle of the backup goaltenders, advantage Jonas Johansson and the Lightning. And it could come into a complete shootout with both of those backup goaltenders maybe letting up more than their starting counterparts of Montevideo for the Habs and, of course, Vasilevsky for the Bolts would let in. So against those backup goalies, I'm taking the better offense and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like to see them with 2 straight wins, adding on to a 3-game win streak to finish off 2024. Though I think this game against the Canadiens on Sunday is going to be an exciting one. And I'm saying the Lightning are going to take that one by a score of 6-3. So we've got a 5-2 win for the Bolts against the Rangers, hopefully on Saturday, and a 6-3 win for the Bolts against the Habs on Sunday. Comment with your score predictions or send us a DM. We're at LO_Lightning on X. And please make sure to give us a like, a follow, and a subscription if you're listening to this podcast. And for all of you, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. Now for your second listen, make sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steele and Flint. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And once again, please give us a like, a follow, and a subscription. We do the show for you guys, the fans, so we really appreciate your guys' support in kind. Thank you again for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoy your holiday season and have a great weekend. Hope for 2 more Lightning wins. I know that's what I want on my holiday wish list.